Life is unpredictable, my whole world is crushing down before me and I don't know what to do. Everything still feels like a dream. I wish I never went to the club on that fateful day. I've never been the type to go clubbing in the first place. A single night out with my friends is about to ruin my life. I messed up big time and I can only hope that things don't end up getting worse than it already is. I'm in a state of fiasco right now. I can't believe I cheated on my fiancé with a total stranger. How do I come out of this? A night of fun is about to cause me my whole world. My name is Nadia and I'm a 26-year-old TV presenter. I live in a small town called Madison in Georgia. I'm engaged to my fiancé, his name is George. He is an architect. George and I have been engaged for 2 years and our wedding is in 2 weeks. I met George 5 years ago when I went to New York for an audition. It was love at first sight. Ever since then we have been inseparable. George is the absolute love of my life. He has all the qualities I ever wanted in a man. He is every woman's dream. The more I think about it, the more I blame myself for everything. I don't think George will ever forgive me for cheating on him 2 weeks before our wedding. I hate myself for doing this to him. He doesn't deserve this. George and I promised each other we would be celibate until our wedding night, and now I have ruined everything. I don't think I will be able to look him in the face and tell him the truth. I don't know how he's going to react. He might even break off the engagement and cancel the wedding. That will be disastrous. How will I be able to confess to George that I slept with a total stranger at a club? I wish I never followed my friends to the club that night. I can still remember everything that happened that night. My friends organized a party for me at a club and invited me. Initially, I wanted to decline the invitation, but I decided to go after I saw how much effort they had put into planning the party. The party was going smoothly until I decided to have a drink. That was the beginning of my nightmare. While we were dancing and having fun, a tall handsome man approached me and requested I dance with him. I was reluctant at first, but my friends encouraged me. According to them I should loosen up and have fun because after marriage I wouldn't have such freedom anymore. I wish I never listened to them, but I did. The man introduced himself as Jaden. Our conversation began from there. I enjoyed his company because he made me laugh so hard. I don't think I have laughed so hard like that in a long time. Don't get me wrong, I love my fiancé George, but sometimes he can be too serious. Jaden and I continued our conversation. The conversation was going so smoothly that I didn't want it to end. That was the only thing I can remember. The next day I woke up to see myself in a strange place, on a strange bed and with a complete stranger. I was so devastated, and was in denial for the first 5 minutes. I needed time to process everything. I could not bring myself to accept the fact that I jumped in bed with a stranger I just met less than 24 hours ago. It didn't make sense. I've been celibate ever since I met George 5 years ago. How then did I let my guard down to sleep with a stranger I met a few hours ago? George doesn't know what has happened yet. He has been out of town for work and will be back tomorrow. I don't know what to do now. Should I confess everything to George or I should keep this secret with me forever? My wedding is coming up in a few weeks and I don't know what might happen if I confess to George the first cheated on him. I don't want to lose George. I love him so much that the thought of him breaking up our engagement and calling off the wedding is killing me. I don't think I can survive without George in my life. What should I do, guys? Should I confess to George or pretend like nothing happened? Update. Hi guys, it's me again. I didn't confess to George, at least not yet. I decided to bury the truth with me forever. I can't risk losing George. I can't even imagine my life without George. I decided to move on like nothing happened. Everything was going fine until Jaden contacted me. I didn't pick the call because I didn't have his contact on my phone. I gave him my contact at the party I guessed. After several calls, I decided to pick the call and he introduced himself. I immediately ended the call, so he sent me a text. He said he has been looking for me and that he has something for me. I can't even believe the fool still had the audacity to contact me after everything. Even though I have a part to play in everything that happened, I'm sure he took advantage of me because I was tipsy. I blocked his line immediately and continued with my day. I regret going to the club that day. If I had stayed at home that day, I never would have met Jaden. What happened could have been averted. But it is too late to apportion blame now. I just had to concentrate on what was important, which was my upcoming wedding with George. Everything was going as planned until 2 weeks later. I noticed my engagement ring was missing. That was the beginning of another problem for me. I was dressed ready to meet George for our wedding rehearsal when I noticed I could no longer find my engagement ring. There is no way I will meet with George and he will not notice my engagement ring is missing. I have never removed my engagement ring ever since George proposed to me 2 years ago. There is no way I'm going to miss my own wedding rehearsal, but I can't go there without my engagement ring. I turned my entire house upside down looking for the ring, yet I couldn't find it. George was calling on the phone, everyone was worried. After searching my house and not finding the ring, I knew where I might have left it. Your guess is as good as mine. I forgot the ring at Jaden's place. I unblocked him and called him immediately. He told me he's been expecting my call that he is with my ring and I should come to his house and get it. I asked him if we could meet in an open place, but he insisted we meet in his house. I didn't have an option. I wanted my ring back, so I went to his house. I slept with Jaden again, guys. Don't judge me, please. There's something about Jaden that is irresistible. Jaden and I made out for the second time. This time I was not tipsy and it was 2 days to my wedding. I couldn't believe what had happened. Everything happened so fast. There's this undeniable sensation between Jaden and I. I took my engagement ring from Jaden and I warned him never to contact me again, that I was getting married in 2 days. Jaden fell on his knees and started begging. He asked me to give us a chance and I told him there is no us to begin with. He locked the door and blocked me from stepping out and I threatened to shout. He got scared and moved out the way. I was already late for my wedding rehearsal. Everyone was worried sick because they could not reach me. My phone battery died on my way to Jaden's place. By the time I arrived at the venue for the wedding rehearsal it was already late, most people had gone. I only met George and some of his friends around. George was angry, but he took me aside to inquire what happened. I didn't know what to say, so I lied. I told him my grandma met with an accident and I took her to the hospital. That calmed him down a little. He asked we go see her after the rehearsal, but I told him there was no need because it was a minor accident. She is fine and recovering at home. All through the rehearsals George kept staring at me, like he knew I was trying to hide something from him. He kept asking me if I was okay, all through the rehearsals. He suggested we postpone the rehearsals since I was not in the right frame of mind, but I insisted we continue. If there's one thing I know, it is the fact that I don't have enough time. The more I looked at George, the more I felt guilty. How do I explain to him I cheated on him twice with a stranger? A stranger I don't even know anything about. I don't even know his surname. George kept trying to cheer me up all through the rehearsals. He thought my grandma's accident ruined my mood, so he tried everything within his power to cheer me up. I had to play along because I knew George is very smart. The more he tried to cheer me up, the more sad I became. He doesn't deserve this, not from me, not from anyone. I hate myself right now. I can't believe I made the same mistake twice. The rehearsals were over and George drove me home. The ride home was longer than usual. I don't know if it was the silence in the car or the cold. Whatever it is, I know I might get caught soon if I don't do something. George dropped me at home without saying a word, which was unlike him. He didn't even respond when I asked him if we would be seeing each other the following day. He just drove off without saying anything. I think he is beginning to suspect me. I know I can't fool him for long. Should I confess to him I cheated on him twice with a stranger I met at a club? What if he ends our relationship and never forgives me? I can't allow that to happen. I will do everything possible to make sure George doesn't find out about my affairs. The following day I got a message from George asking me to meet him at our favorite coffee shop. I was so scared because I didn't know why he wanted to see me 24 hours before our wedding. So many thoughts were flying through my mind. I wanted to ask the reason for the sudden meetup, but I know he would suspect something fishy if I did that. I was nervous, you could tell by just looking at me. I decided to face my fears and confront my demons once and for all. I got up, dressed up, and headed for the coffee shop. My legs were shaking. I thought they would break before I got to George. I was so lost in thought that I didn't know when we arrived at the coffee shop, the taxi driver had to tap me for me to come back to my senses. I got down and I could see George was already there waiting for me, which made me more anxious. We were supposed to meet by 9 o'clock and George was already seated there by 8 o'clock. I arrived earlier than scheduled because I wanted to calm myself down before the meeting. All of a sudden, fear gripped me and I didn't want to step an inch inside anymore because it was obvious George already knows the truth and he is about to call off the engagement and cancel the wedding. It took the last strength in me for me to finally step inside. I guess you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have. Well, can you guys guess what happened next? Sorry to burst your bubble, guys, George didn't invite me over to break off the engagement, at least not yet. But I wish I never went in the first place because nothing prepared me for what happened next. After I arrived at the coffee shop, I met with George and he apologized for the way he behaved with me the day before. He told me he was mad. I showed up 5 hours late to our wedding rehearsals and that was why he ignored me. He apologized for being insensitive and asked me to forgive him. Guys, I died. How could he ask me to forgive him when I'm the one who should be asking for his forgiveness? How would he react when he finds out my grandma was never sick and that I was making out with a stranger? That was why I came late to our wedding rehearsal. I felt bad and hated myself even more. At that moment, I wanted to confess everything to him, but I could not. I can't risk losing him forever, so I said I have accepted his apology and I also apologized for not informing him about my grandma's alleged accident on time. One dangerous thing about telling a lie is, you need a lie to cover a lie. Once you start telling lies, there's no going back. I never knew a day would come when I would keep anything from my best friend. We always told each other everything. I know everything about George, even the little things. I know of his favorite shaving stick even down to his favorite hairbrush. We tell each other everything. We gist about how our day went every night before bed. George always calls me to tell me good night every day since we met 5 years ago. He has been consistent that I wonder how he makes out time from his busy schedule. George makes sure we talk at least 3 times daily. George was always out of town because of the nature of his job and that's why he made sure we communicated at least 3 times daily. The reason our relationship survived my challenges was because of communication. We communicated our feelings to each other. That's why it hurts me that I can't discuss my cheating with him. That would mean losing him forever. George is soft-hearted but he is also a principled man. I've witnessed a situation where he sacked his cook because he lied to him about the cost of groceries. I knew he would never forgive me if he found out I cheated on him with a complete stranger. The worst aspect is that I was the one that suggested we stay celibate until our wedding night. We made a promise to stay faithful to each till we say I do. George will never forgive me, that I'm sure of. He will think I tricked him. George has been faithful to me ever since we started dating. He was a bad boy, well, not really, but he has the look. Ladies always flocked around him, but all that changed when we started dating. He blocked all of them when he saw how uncomfortable I was. He can do anything just to put a smile on my face, but here I was hiding a very big secret from him. I was playing how everything can go wrong in my head. When George interrupted me, he held my hands and asked me if there's anything I should tell him. I was confused. I pretended to be lost and asked him what he meant by that. He told me we are about to get married and we should start our new chapter on a clean slate, that if there's anything I want to tell him I shouldn't hesitate. That was my chance, guys, my chance to confess everything and finally be free from the guilt that is ruining what ought to be the best time of my life. But I was too scared to come clean. I told him there's nothing of sort, that I have always been open to him ever since we started dating. There I was telling more lies. I threw the question back to him and he said yes, he has something he wanted to confess to me and that I should swear I will forgive him. Guys, in that moment I had some comfort. I could breathe again. I thought he was about to confess he cheated on him, not that I will be happy he cheated, but at least we will be even. I asked him to go ahead and promise to forgive him. He told me there was a time he lied to me about being at home, but the truth is, he was out with some of his friends, so I should please forgive him. I was disappointed. Everything was written all over my face. At that moment I wished he cheated on me so we will be even, but that's not the case. I can't believe he will apologize for telling lies. I mean, everybody lies, maybe not everybody, but why is he even apologizing for that? Why now? He is trying to make me feel guilty. Is there a puzzle I'm missing? Does he know something? All these were the questions flying in my head, but I could not voice them out. I told him I had forgiven him and we hugged. He brought out a customized diamond necklace and gave it to me. He told me he couldn't wait for us to finally get married tomorrow. George love language, he loves giving me expensive things. Everything was going smoothly until my worst nightmare finally happened. While George was helping me wear the necklace, I decided to look in the mirror and see how the necklace looked on me, and couldn't believe my eyes. Is that not Jaden I'm seeing sitting on the next table to ours? I was shocked. He was smiling at me, so I quickly dropped the mirror and face front. I told George the first was no longer comfortable in that coffee shop and that we should go to another place. He was surprised because that was our favorite spot. He asked me to exercise a little patience so he could finish his hot dog and coffee. But he stopped eating when he saw how uncomfortable I was. He asked me to give him a minute so he could rush to the restroom so we could go. Immediately he stepped out to go use the restroom. Jaden left his table and came to where I was staying. I was too scared to remember anything he was saying. I kept asking him to leave, but he refused. While we were at it, George arrived and asked why Jaden was in his seat. I have to come up with an excuse to save the day. I told George, Jaden was my schoolmate and he only came to say hi to me. I introduced George to Jaden as my fiancé. Jaden got the message and left immediately. George was not convinced by that lie, he is too smart to buy that kind of lie. We left the coffee shop and headed home. Before dropping me at home, George held my hands again and looked into my eyes, this time more serious. He asked me if I'm keeping anything away from him and I told him no. He dropped me off at the house and wanted to come say hello, but I refused because he might discover I lied about my grandma having an accident. How long can I keep up with the lies though? Anyways, I'm getting married in 10 hours' time. I will worry about the consequences of my actions later. I just wanted to live in the present. But one thing I was sure of is that George is beginning to suspect me. Update. It is finally my wedding day, guys. Yes, my wedding day. The day that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life turned out to be the worst day of my entire life. The day I always fantasized about got ruined. I don't even know where to start from. So I got up that morning excited that I was about to tie the knot, not knowing I was about to be humiliated. I didn't know I was about to be mocked by my enemies. Everything happened so fast, it felt like a dream. I woke up that day earlier than usual. I was excited, so you could tell by just looking at me. I was so happy to finally be getting married. I couldn't wait for the wedding ceremony to be over, so George and I would start our journey together. I hurriedly took my bath and my makeup artist started putting makeup on my face. George called me on the phone and asked if I was prepared, and I told him yes, I'm fully prepared to get married. He sounded weird, but I was too excited to bother myself about that. I mean, what could go wrong again? George and I will be getting married in 2 hours. Nothing can go wrong in just a short time, so I thought, but I was wrong. Everything could go wrong in a twinkle of an eye. Your entire life can change in just a moment. That's what happened to me. After my phone call with George, the first was even more excited than I was before. George told me on the phone he had a surprise for me. I was so eager to get married, I almost told my makeup to stop the makeup. I was eager to get married. I asked my makeup artist to hurry so we will be done on time because I will not be going late to my own wedding. Everything was going so smoothly, I almost forgot that I cheated on George. George called me back. He said he wanted to check if everything was in order. I told him everything was perfect. I mean, we hired the best wedding planner in town. He asked me if I have ever done something stupid before. The question was strange. I told him no, and he was quiet for some time. I asked if he was having a second thought about us getting married or if he was getting cold feet. He assured me everything was fine and that he was only teasing me. I wish I had read the sign. He asked me if I was nervous and I told him no. How can I be nervous when I'm about to get married to my best friend? If anything, I was excited because I knew I made the right choice. I picked the perfect man to be the father of my unborn kids. But deep down I was worried. I wanted to know why George sounded off on the phone. The more I thought about it, the more restless I became. I can't afford to lose George, the thought alone makes my heart arch. I finally left for church, guys. On my way to church, George kept calling. He said he wanted to make sure I arrived safely. I asked where was and he told me he was already at the church. He told me he couldn't wait to see me. I became a little relaxed after the call, but I was still anxious. I wanted everything to be over so I could breathe. I got to the church and got the biggest surprise of my life. I know you guys are eager to know what happened next. Well, here we go. George never showed up to our wedding. George dished me on the altar. Everything happened so fast it still feels like a dream. What I have feared the most has happened to me. George did not just cancel the wedding, he made sure he gave me a public embarrassment. How do I face everyone and tell them the wedding has been canceled? At that moment it felt like I had lost everything. At first I thought he was stuck up in traffic or something happened to him on his way to our wedding. I decided to try his line, but he refused to pick up. I was even more worried because we spoke few minutes ago and he assured me he was already at the venue. The priest that was supposed to officiate our wedding was surprised to see me. Apparently George had called the priest to inform him that the wedding was cancelled. I couldn't believe my ears. If not that he was a priest, I would have called him a pretty liar. All the guests were present except for George's family and friends, which was shocking. I couldn't even look at my dad. I could tell he was disappointed. If there's one person that was genuinely happy that I was getting married, it was my dad. We have always planned this ever since I was a child. He always dreamt about walking me down the aisle. I could tell he was not happy. I felt bad for my dad. His dream of walking his only child down the aisle was cut short. Everyone felt sorry for me. I felt bad for them too. I blamed myself for wasting everybody's time. I continued calling George till he finally picked up. I asked his whereabouts and he warned me to stop calling him. I was shocked because he has never spoken to me in that manner before. He asked if I liked my surprise. It was then I realized he had planned everything. He told me he is aware of everything and that he can't get married to cheat like me and that he regretted the day he ever set eyes on me. He told me there would be no wedding. He called me so many unprinted names. I begged him to come back for us to at least get married and after the wedding we can fix everything. He can even cheat back if that is what he wants and we'll be even. I begged him, but he refused to listen. He told me things don't work that way. He told me he knows everything I have done so far, how I got in bed with a total stranger I met at a club and how I have been telling more lies to cover up. How I went to visit him on the night of our wedding rehearsals and still slept with him again. He told me I should get lost and never contact him again. He told me he was going to ruin my life and that dishing me on our wedding day was just one out many to come. Everything felt like a dream and I had to pinch myself to make sure I was not dreaming. My worst fears finally came to pass, guys. George didn't not just break off the engagement, he never showed at the altar. The humiliation was too much. Everyone present looked at me with pity and tried to console me. I bet they would hate me if they finally found out the truth of what happened. I knew my life was ruined forever. It was foolish of me to think I could get away with cheating. What was I thinking in the first place? I ran out of the church as fast as my legs could carry me and headed straight to George Place. I was denied entrance by the security. I had to go back home. I tried calling George several times, but he never picked up my calls. It was later in the day the reality of everything that had happened hit me. I cried so much it felt like my eyes would pop out. I can't believe I ruined my own life. I have lost George, my best friend, forever. The following day, the news was all over town. My cancelled wedding had become a hot gossip in the town. One thing I was thankful for was the fact that no one knew why George never showed up at our wedding yet. My life will be ruined if people get to know the reason my wedding never happened. George showed up at my house the next day and asked that I return everything he had ever bought for me, from the phone down to the smallest thing like a hairpin. He took it all. I decided to use the opportunity and apologize, but he refused to listen. I wanted to tell him what happened, but he paid deaf ears to everything I was saying. He took everything from me and gave them to my stepmom and half-sister. I was surprised because George and my stepmom had never gotten along. If for anything he hated my stepmom because of how my stepmom treats me, so why is he giving them everything he seized from me? Nothing made sense anymore. Apparently, it was my stepmom and half-sister that exposed everything to George. They overheard me when I was discussing everything that happened with my friend. They recorded it and sent it to George. I don't even blame them, I blame myself. If I had not gone to the club that night, everything that happened would have been avoided and I would be married to George by now. It's too late to feel sorry for myself now, so I decided to go see George one more time to apologize. This time he allowed me in. Nothing prepared me for the surprise that was waiting for me. I came into the house and met George and his ex-girlfriend. For a moment I thought we were still together and I flared up, but he called me to order. He told me I didn't have the right to question him as we are more together. That I lost that right the day I slept with a stranger and lied to him about it. I was hurt but I remained calm. The interesting part is that they're married. Yes, married. Apparently while I was walking down the aisle waiting for George, he decided to wed his ex-girlfriend the same day. The shock was too much for me, that I fainted. I woke up to see myself at the hospital. I thought I would see George by my side but he was nowhere to be found. He didn't even bring me to the hospital. He asked the security to take me to the hospital and he called my dad to inform him I fainted. He never showed up till I was discharged from the hospital. If someone had told me this would happen to me, I would have bet with everything I have that it was not possible. I thought things like this happened in movies. Now my life is like a movie. I never in a million years thought I would cheat on my fiancé with a complete stranger and he would get revenge by leaving me at the altar and getting married to his ex-girlfriend the same day. I doubt I will ever recover from this. I know I was wrong to have cheated on George, but I didn't deserve the public humiliation he gave me. He has practically ruined my life. How do I face the world again? I have lost my self-confidence. Update. Hi guys, I'm back again. Life has been tough. I never imagined my life would turn out this way. I still blame myself every day for cheating on George. I still wish I never went to the club that night. I wish I had declined my friend's invitation to the party. I'm trying to pick up my life again. Slowly everyone seems to be forgetting everything that happened but not me. Everything is still fresh in my heart. I have continued to blame myself. There's no day I don't cry myself to sleep. Crying has become my favorite thing to do. I would be married to George right now if I had not gone to that party. I decided to move, but it wasn't easy. The more I tried, the harder it became. Madison, Georgia is a small town and news travels fast like wildfire. I couldn't even step out of the house because anyway I went, there were 2 or 3 people gossiping about me. They made the gossip so loud I could hear them. As if the news of my wedding being cancelled was not enough, my stepmom and half-sister decided to spread the news of me sleeping with a stranger a few weeks before my wedding. It got so bad I couldn't even step out of my room. While people were gossiping about me outside, my stepmom and half-sister were on a roll call at home. They took turns to taunt me. I finally decided to relocate from Madison, Georgia and go start life all over again, a place where no one knew me, and that was the best decision I made. I left Madison, Georgia and I moved to Paris. I just wanted to breathe some fresh air. Life in Paris was not easy. It was hard for me to adapt to life there. I grew up in a small town. All my life I was used to a simple life, so it was hard for me to get used to the fast life Paris threw at me. I'm happy I finally summoned the courage to leave my comfort zone. Slowly, I started getting used to life in Paris and I started settling in. I got a house and furnished it to my taste, and I also landed a job at a multi-million company in Paris. Everything seemed to be going well, but I was still not happy. I still felt incomplete. Don't get me wrong, George was my best friend for 5 years, but it was as if I had known him my entire life. That is why it was hard for me to pick up my life again. My life seems to be meaningless without. As time passed, I started smiling again. I started gaining my confidence back. A breakoff shouldn't be the end of the world for me. I still regret everything that happened, but I don't feel bad anymore. It took a lot of therapy sessions for me to be in this present state of mind. Initially, I was reluctant about going for therapy. I thought it was a complete waste of time, but now I'm happy I did. I'm no longer a damaged person, at least not 100%. I can see a lot of improvement in myself. There was no point wishing on what could have been or feeling sorry for myself. I finally accepted that there was no way George and I would get back together. George is married to his ex-girlfriend now. George didn't leave room for reconciliation, that was why he quickly got married to his ex-girlfriend. I had to stop dreaming about us ever coming back together and just face my life. It took lots of work and therapy sessions for me to come out of what happened. I had to make a conscious effort to forget about George, I had to stop waiting for his calls, I had to stop stalking him on social media, and I had to block him for my own sanity. I deleted all the pictures we took together and got rid of everything that reminded me of him. Most importantly, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I told myself what had happened, and there was nothing I could do about that. That's my story, guys. I hope everyone learns from it. You can't eat your cake and have it. I hope everyone learns a thing or two from my story. Even though I have forgiven myself for everything that happened, I can't seem to forget. I know time will heal everything. Thanks and